and welcome back to another week in new genre books. Thanks for stopping by. We're always glad to have you here. My name is Amelia, and from Locus magazine, I'm about to tell you the top new science fiction, fantasy, and horror books being published the week of May 16th, 2023. Please like and subscribe. That is a big part of keeping this booktube going, and all you have to do is click the subscribe button. I've got links for timing if you want to skip to your favorite category, be it science fiction, fantasy, or horror. We love them all. Stick around to the end for a special surprise. Starting with science fiction books this week, we have 3 science fiction titles being published. From Christopher Paolini, the author of Argren, we saw Fractal Noise, out from Tor in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a science fiction novel, first of 2 in the Fractalverse series. July 25th, 2234, the crew of the Adimura discovers the anomaly on the seemingly uninhabited planet of Talos 8, a circular pit 50 kilometers wide. Its curve not of nature, but design. Now, a small team must land and journey on foot across its surface to learn who built the hole and why. For some, the mission is the dream of a lifetime. For others, a risk not worth taking. And for one, it is a desperate attempt to find meaning in an uncaring universe. From T.C. Boyle, we saw Blue Skies, out from Live Right in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a satirical, literary, near-future science fiction / climate fiction novel. Denied a dog, a baby, and even a faithful fiancé, Kat suddenly craves a snake, a glistening, writhing creature that can be worn like jewelry, living jewelry, to match her black jeans. But when the budding social media star promptly loses the young Premee she buys from a local pet store, she inadvertently sets in motion a chain of increasingly dire and outrageous events that comes to threaten her very survival. From Sue Burke, we saw Dual Memory, out from Tor in hardcover, trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a science fiction novel. Antonio Moro lost everything to the Leviathan League. Now he's alone in a city on an Arctic island fighting the ruthless global pirates with the chance to be the artist he always wanted to be. Unfortunately, he thinks it's a cover story for his real purpose, spying on sympathizers. When things look bleak, he discovers an unusual ally. It's insolent, extroverted, moody, and a not quite legal, nascent AI. Together, they create a secret rebellion from unlikely recruits to defend the island from ideological pirates with entitlement and guns, and capitalist pirates with entitlement and money. It would be morally wrong of me to not make a pirate joke here, given that there are 2 kinds of pirates in this novel. What's the pirate's favorite letter of the alphabet? R. Next up, fantasy, we have 10 titles this week. From R.F. Kuang, we saw Yellowface, out from Morrow in hardcover, trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy novel. Authors June Hayward and Athena Liu were supposed to be twin rising stars. Athena's a literary darling. June Hayward is literally nobody. Who wants stories about basic white girls, June thinks. So when June witnesses Athena's death in a freak accident, she acts on impulse. She steals Athena's just finished masterpiece, an experimental novel about the unsung contributions of Chinese laborers during World War I. So what if June edits Athena's novel and sends it to her agent as her own work? So what if she lets her new publisher rebrand her as Juniper Song, complete with an ambiguously ethnic author photo? And a super pedantic word from me about the origin of the word masterpiece. It is the piece that is accepted by one's peers as the work of a master of a craft, as opposed to the work of a journeyman, which could still be very skilled. Just in case you're looking to join a medieval guild, you might need to know this. From Daniel Jose Older, we saw Last Canto of the Dead, out from Rick Riordan Presents in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult urban fantasy novel. Mateo Matisse and Chela Ildago are not just 2 teenagers in love, they're powerful gods in human form, powerful enough to have saved their Brooklyn diaspora community from the wrath of an ancient enemy, and to have raised their once sunken native island of San Madrigal from the sea. From Charles Stross, we saw Season of Skulls, out from Tor.com in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a Lovecraftian dark fantasy novel. Welcome to the sunlit uplands of the 21st century. Britain's avuncular prime minister is an ancient eldritch god of unimaginable power. Crime is plummeting as almost every offense is punishable by death, And everywhere you look, there are people with strange powers, some of which they can control, and some not so much. Hyper-organized and formidable, Eve Starkey defeated her boss, the louche magical adept and billionaire Rupert de Montfort, Big, spelled B-I-G-G-E, in a supernatural duel to the death. At least, she has reason to hope he's dead, but though she's now in charge of the big corporation, she's not free of him yet. She's got some big problems, sounds like. From Virginia Black, we saw Consecrated Ground, out from Bywater Books in trade paperback and ebook. This is a multiracial lesbian dark fantasy romance novel. Like her father before her, Joan Matthews is a witch. For generations, their family of binder witches has protected Calvert, Oregon from vampires by strengthening the land with spellcraft. Pushing back against tradition, Joan defied her father and left town to become a war witch, one who fights the monsters hand to hand. But when her father dies, Joan returns to find her hometown assailed by a vampire lord's endless attacks. From J.C. Cervantes, we saw The Enchanted Hacienda, out from Park Row Books in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy novel. The Estrada family farm in Mexico houses an abundance of charmed flowers cultivated by Harlow's mother, sisters, aunt, and cousins. By harnessing the magic in these flowers, they can heal hearts, erase memories, interpret dreams. Other family members can anyway, just not Harlow. So when her mother and aunt give her a special task involving the family's magic, she panics. Probably that's just the first step. To panic, I think it's a good first step in taking responsibility, and my money is on Harlow rising to the challenge. From Carolyn Haines, we saw Telltale Bones, out from Minotaur in hardcover and ebook. This is a mystery novel with psychic/ghost elements. Private investigator Sarah Booth Delaney and her partner Tinky are in Sheriff Coleman Peters' office, consulting Coleman about cold cases when Eliza Red storms in with a case of her own. Just the facts, ma'am. She wants Coleman to reopen the investigation of her missing daughter, Lydia Red Maxwell, the heiress to a large fortune who disappeared along with her friend Bethany nearly 7 years ago. Lydia and Bethany were rumored to be working as human rights organizers abroad, but Eliza suspects Lydia's problems might have stemmed closer to home. Now Lydia's husband Tope is set to inherit the fortune, and Eliza believes he's behind the disappearance. From Ross Hightower, we saw Argren Blue, out from Black Rose Writing in trade paperback and ebook. This is a fantasy novel. When Alar joined the resistance, he dreamed of throwing the imperial oppressors out of Argren. But as the inexperienced rebels reel from one disaster to another, Alar wonders if the Empire notices them at all, until the day he discovers he has powers not seen since the great heroes of the past. As he explores his newfound abilities, an imperial witch appears to ask the rebels to rescue prisoners from an Inquisition prison. Sounds impossible, but the rebels are up to try it. From Margaret Owen, we saw Painted Devils, out from Holt in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult fantasy novel. After taking down a corrupt Margrave, breaking a deadly curse, and finding romance with the vexingly scrupulous junior prefect Emmerich Conrad, Vanja had one great mystery left: her long-lost birth family, and whether they would welcome a thief. But in her search for an honest trade, she hit trouble and invented a god, the Scarlet Maiden, to scam her way out. From Akshaya Raman, we saw The Crimson Fortress, out from Clarion in hardcover. This is a young adult fantasy novel. The search for the Ivory Key has brought royal siblings Vera, Ronak, Caleb, and Rhea closer than they ever have been in years as they try to restore magic and stability to Ashoka. But despite finally getting their hands on the long-lost key, uncovering its cipher has proved more complicated and dangerous than they ever expected. Their missions force them to split up and disperse them across Ashoka and beyond. From Andrea Robertson, we saw Bound by Sword and Spirit, out from Philomel in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult fantasy novel. Ara and her companions are separated, and the world is in danger. The evil Vakans are continuing their conquest of Saitland, and the world Ara is meant to protect. The only thing that can stop the wizards and the destroyer Vok is Ara and her lore knights. Next up, collections and anthologies. We have 5 titles this week. From The Last Unicorn author Peter S. Beagle, we saw The Essential Peter S. Beagle, Volume 2, Oakland, Dragon Blues, and Other Stories, out from Tachyon Publications in hardcover and ebook. This is a fantasy collection. The essential second volume of best-selling author Peter S. Beagle's short stories, including 1 previously unpublished and 4 uncollected stories, shows again that Beagle is one of America's most influential fantasists. With his celebrated versatility, humor, and grace, Beagle is at home in a dazzling variety of subgenres. From Premee Mohamed, we saw No One Will Come Back for Us, out from Undertow in trade paperback and ebook. This is a collection of stories of dark fantasy and contemporary cosmic horror. Here there be gods and monsters, forged from flesh and stone, and vengeance, emerging from the icy abyss of deep space, ascending from dark oceans and prowling strange cities to enter worlds of chaos and wonder, where scientific rigor and human endeavor is tested to the limits. There are cosmic realms and watery domains where old offerings no longer appease the ancient gods or the new and hungry idols. Deities and beasts, life and death, love and hate, science and magic, and smiling monsters in human skin. From María Fernanda Ampuero, we saw Human Sacrifices, out from the Feminist Press at CUNY in trade paperback. This is an original collection of 12 stories translated from the Spanish Sacrificios Humanos by Francis Riddle. Human Sacrifices is tropical Gothic. At its finest, decay and oppression underlie our humid and hostile world, where working-class women and children are consistently the weakest links in a capitalist economy. Against this backdrop of corrosion and riot, these 12 stories contemplate the nature of exploitation and abuse. From editor G. Heron Davis, we saw anthology Transmogrify, out from Harper Teen in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is an original anthology of 14 stories of trans and gender non-conforming fantasy. Transness is as varied and colorful as magic can be. Embark on 14 different adventures alongside unforgettable characters who embody many different genders and expressions and experiences, because magic is for everyone. From editors Jody Lynn Nye and Dean Wesley Smith, we saw L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future, Volume 39, out from Galaxy in trade paperback and ebook. This is an original anthology with fantasy, science fiction, magical realism, urban fantasy, and more, from the winners of the Writers of the Future contest, a quarterly contest with a cash prize and no fee to enter. That wraps up this week. Thanks for spending some time with us. At Locus, we want to tell you everything relevant that's happening in the science fiction, fantasy, horror publishing space. We appreciate your eyes and ears and your likes and subscribes. Please do subscribe and turn notifications on so you know about this video when it goes up every week. The magazine and YouTube channel are a labor of love. We are at Locus Mag or at Locus Magazine on most platforms. You can read more about the science fiction, fantasy, and horror field over at www.locusmag or support us on our Patreon. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Come back and see us again soon, and we'll be here next week with more new books. And by special request in the YouTube comments, yes, the comments right below the video where you too can tell us what you think, we had a request that I read the following poem. Ozymandias by the marvelous Percy Bysshe Shelley. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read which yet survive. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away."